afternoon, 11Gs. Okay, thank you. Sit down. Welcome you to our geography lesson, and also welcome all the other students who will be watching our broadcast. And the subject that we're going to be looking at is geography. So we'll start off with an introduction to what is expected of us in this particular field of study, and then we'll move on to the first lesson, and that is looking at mapping skills. Okay, introduction now to our work on this particular subject, and that is geography. One might want to ask, what is geography? In grade 10, we studied the social sciences. Geography was never seen as a subject or a discipline on its own. We looked at geography generally as a social science subject. So if we can recall, going back to grade 10, we studied the book Changing World, and in that particular book, there were a lot of things about geography in it. There was things on the tectonic plate movements, rocks, mountain building, and etc. In grade 11, we are not going to look at social science in general. Rather, we are going to look at specific disciplines or fields, and one of those is that of the subject that we are looking at today. The other field of study that can also, other disciplines that can also come with geography is that of history. There is politics. There is also economics that is studied as part of the social sciences. But for geography, what is it? If we look at the definition of what geography is, on the monitor, you can refer to it. If it's not very clear or you cannot see from that far, it's on the chart, the same information is presented. So we look at the definition now to what is geography. You will be required to make note of this definition later on into your exercise book. In the study of geography, we are basically looking at the study of the Earth's surface, including all the phenomena which make up its physical environment and its behavioral environment. When we look at the physical environment, we are basically looking at nature and what nature has actually done in terms of the formation of landform. In the behavioral environment, we are going to be looking at humans and how humans have contributed to changes to the natural environment. Okay, so all of those then, the physical and the behavioral environment, they include what we call topography. And when we talk about topography, we are looking at the Earth's surface and all the features on the Earth's surface, how they are formed. For example, we are looking at mountain building, we are looking at volcanoes, and etc. Then we also have oceanography, and this is basically looking at the oceans and the life in the oceans, the resources in the oceans, the waves, sea, and etc. Then we look at climatology, and in climate, we are looking at the world's climate, how they are formed, the different processes that are actually involved in the formation of climate of different areas. We also have what we call biogeography. We look at the word bio and putting it together with geography. So here we are going to be dealing with plants and animals. Why is it that certain plants grow best in certain areas and not in other areas? Similarly, the distribution of animals. So this will all come with biogeography. So putting all of those together with their related processes and the consideration of their spatial and temporal distribution, then we are looking at the study of geography. Okay, so that's what we are going to be generally looking at throughout our course. Okay, we move on. For grade 11 and also grade 12, when we look at geography, there are three main areas that we are going to cover. And the three main areas are the physical geography part. And for physical geography, it's mainly the science in geography we are looking at. And that's the one for physical. Then we also have human geography, and that's where humans come in and their contribution to how they would have changed the natural environment. That human geography is also a very important part of our study in geography, and this we will cover in detail when we look at the case studies in Term 3 and Term 4. When we look at the case study of Java, and when we look at the case study of Papua New Guinea, we are also going to touch on human geography. And finally, but not the least, skills in any social science subject, including geography, skills, very important. We need to be able to interpret, extrapolate, put together information, evaluate, etc. But these are the different skills which are involved also in geography. So those are the three areas that we are going to be concentrating on mainly. In Term 1 and Term 2, we will look at physical geography. So the first booklet, the Introduction to Physical Geography and Climate, will come under the heading here of physical geography. The third and the fourth booklet, Java and Papua New Guinea, will come under human geography. But skills, we are going to do skills for every section or every part we come to where it is appropriate. Say, for example, if we are doing human geography and we're studying about population, then construction, interpreting of population pyramids, very important. That is skills. But we will integrate that when we come to each of those topics. Our first lesson today will look at skills as an important part of geography, and I am going to concentrate mainly on what we call mapping skills. Skills can be many different types. We're looking at graphs, different types of graphs, line graphs, bar graphs, column graphs, multiple line graphs, etc. And we can also look at pie graphs as part of our skills, pictographs, of which they all portray certain type of information. But we'll concentrate when we're looking at geography mainly on what we call mapping skills. And because this is to do with mapping skills, we will require maps to be able to do some activity. You with me so far? Okay, so now we are moving to our lesson for today, and that is looking at mapping skills. I'd given you a handout prior, and I wanted you to read through that information. And our task today will be basically being able to use and identify symbols on maps. The maps that we are going to be using mainly in our skills work in geography is going to be what we call topographic maps. And in topographic maps, those are maps that contain or that represent information mainly on features, landform features that is, or relief. So when we talk about contours, height above sea level, those are things that we require, or we are going to be required to look at basically on the work on mapping skills. Any questions so far? Any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move on. You can make note of this now into your exercise book, or you can write on the handouts that have been distributed. We will need to use the Atlas map of Papua New Guinea on page 11 and page 12. So if you can turn to page 11 and 12, double check. It should be titled The Map of Papua New Guinea. 10 and 11, sorry, page 10 and 11, the map of Papua New Guinea. That's the map that we're going to be needing for completion of some tasks or activities. Okay, mapping skills. Any good map should have 4 important components. What are the 4 components that any good map should have or must have? Yama, give me one of those components. Sorry, Yama, again, you need to get the microphone. Okay, very good. Any good map should contain a scale. That is one of the components. I mentioned that there are 4 components. So what are the other 3 beside the scale? Dorothy? We'll need to pass the microphone. Okay, Yama said scale is 1. I need 3 more. Dorothy is going to give us another of those important components of any good map. Okay, good. Thank you. Direction. So we have the scale. We have direction. That's 2. Dorothy is correct. We need 2 more. Give us the third one.
Key.
A key, good. Any good map should also contain what we call key or keys. And beside the key or the keys, we also have other terms that are used for the same thing. We can have symbols or legends. They're all referring to symbols that you find on the map. So far we have three. We have scale, we have direction, we have the keys or the symbols. Note also for direction, most maps don't usually give you all the 4 indicators of the map. Rather, they give you an arrow, and that arrow is usually pointing to the north. And they have the letter N there to indicate that that is the north direction. And knowing the north direction, you should be able to work out the other directions correctly. Okay, we've got 3 already: the key or symbols, the scale, and the direction. And what would be the last important component of any good map? How about our friend next to the one who just gave us our answer? One more component? No? Anyone know? One more component, important component that we should have? The scale, symbols or keys, direction, one more. You look at the map that you have in front of you, the map on page 10 and 11. Thank you, okay? Tell us. It might give you a clue on what we are going to come up with.
The colors and shading.
Okay, the colors and shading, good try, because the colors and shading, they are part of the keys and symbols. You look at the colors and shading, the colors have, or they represent, are supposed to represent something. So if it is a blue color, that's a key or symbol that might show us the sea or the sky. If it is a white color, it might show us something else, or a blue color, green color, etc. So here goes. The colors are supposed to be keys or symbols also. We need one more important component. Microphone up here, please.
The title.
Very good, the title. So there you go, you have it, the 4 important components of a map. The scale, key or symbols or legends, that's 2. Number 3, direction, usually an arrow to show us the north direction. The rest we can work out. And finally, but not the least, the title. You look at the map in front of you, the map of Papua New Guinea. The title is given there, Papua New Guinea. Someone else who might have never known what Papua New Guinea looks like might look at that map and then have no idea what they're looking at. So the title is important. So if we look at the information from our screen or monitor, it tells us that every good map should have more than a heading and a border on it. It also needs a key, a scale, and a north pointer. The north pointer is simply our direction. So the rest of our work on skills now is going to be based on ensuring that we understand how to interpret and read, and also how to find information using those 4 important components of any good map. We'll move on. Note, generally, if we're dealing with map, a map is a way of showing all part of the surface of the earth and some of the things that are found on it. Maps are usually drawn to scale, and they also use symbols to represent the selected features. So a map might not have everything you want on it, but then the keys or the symbols, which is one of the important components, might be able to present most of those things that you're looking at on studying about the area or a particular area. Okay, the first of those items now or features, we're looking at maps and map symbols, that is. And our activity will see us looking at some of those symbols from our map on page 10 and 11 and seeing that we are able to identify what they're supposed to represent or show. Let's look at the monitor first. It tells us that many maps, a lot of maps, they use a number of special signs or symbols. They are used on the map so that it does not become cluttered with words. Imagine if everything else was written in words, your map will be full of words or sentences. So therefore, instead of writing words, you might as well just use symbols or keys on the map. And these symbols, they show the location of such things as mountains, rivers, towns, roads, rail lines, and bridges. Where possible, the symbol or symbols are drawn so that they look like the things they stand for. So hope we are able, by the end of the lesson, hope we are able to interpret some of those map symbols correctly. If you look at our drawing or cartoon there, the person sitting at the top of the mountain there is saying this part must be wrong. It says there should be a big triangle right here. So he's looking at the map, and on that map, he's looking at triangles are drawn there. And he's sitting right there, and he's wondering, why is it that on the map there is a triangle, but he's sitting on the mountain? So we're looking at how has this person interpreted the symbol on the map. He's looking for triangles where he is supposed to be, but he did not understand that the triangle is supposed to represent the mountains. Okay, we are not going to be like that person. We are now going to look at seeing if we can actually use our atlases to find out what some of those symbols actually represent or show. So the first activity, if you look at page 10 and 11, I want you to actually tell me by writing in your exercise book, first of all, what the following symbols represent. You have the map. You have those 4 important features or factors that any good map must have: the scale, the key, the title, and also the direction. And now, looking at the appropriate information for the key and symbols, I'd like you to write in your exercise book what the following symbols represent. 1, the triangle. 2, the circular dot with another circle around it. And 3, that color, which is the dark brown color. That's your activity. Should take you only 2 minutes for the completion of those. Just draw the symbols quickly in your exercise book, and beside each one, using the map on page 10 and 11, identify the symbol. Get it done quickly. Okay, so that's our 2 minutes. We'll check on the answer. Should be straightforward. You're looking at page 10 and 11 of the atlas. We'll start off with the symbol here, the triangle. What does that represent? We're going to go around that way and bring our microphone this way. So your answer, please, for number 1. What does this symbol represent?
Peak or the highest point.
Okay, good. According to our map there, it's supposed to be a peak or the highest point. If you all have that, well done. The next one, the black circle with a bigger circle around, the second symbol, what does that represent?
Provincial headquarters.
Okay, we're looking at our provincial headquarters. We all agree with him? Yes, definitely. So if we had to name a couple of those, if you look carefully, you have Popondetta, you have Ley, you have Rabaul, you have Lorengau, all of those with the black circle and a bigger circle around it, showing us our provincial headquarters. Well done, we move on. The third one, this time it's a color or shading. What would be the color, or what would that color represent?
Capital city.
Capital city with a brown color. Anyone disagree with him? Okay, Solomon? We're going to make a correction. The brown color, according to our friend there, says a capital city. We don't agree with that, so we'll make the correction. What should that brown color represent?
The color represents 1,500 to 3,000 meters above sea level.
Okay, good. We are looking at height above sea level, which is between 1,000 to 3,000 meters. We double check? We happy with that? Okay, so if you look at your map, the map of Papua New Guinea, any area that is in dark brown color, those are areas which are between 1,000 to 3,000 meters above sea level. That's what the brown shading represents. Let's move on. The next lot of activities. This time, we're still looking at the same map. There are 3 activities now. You are going to draw in or show what the following, or you're going to show, sorry, the following symbols for the major road, height less than 300 meters, and capital city. What symbols represent those 3 items? Okay, that's the next, or activity number 2. It should again take you only 2 minutes for the completion of that. Okay, we'll correct. But before we do our corrections for that, those 3 activities, I'd like us to go back to looking at the color here, the dark color, the dark brown color. It is supposed to represent height above 3,000 meters, not 1,000 and 3,000 as mentioned earlier on. So we'll make that correction. The dark brown color on our map is supposed to represent height above 3,000 meters. Okay, let's move on now for the completion of this one. Major roads, what is it represented with? What symbol is showing there to show us the major roads?
A red straight line.
Okay, good. If you look at the red straight line on your map, you note that is showing us the major roads in the country. Capital city, what symbol? Mr. Trawan? Capital city?
The black small square.
Okay, good. We have the small square or the black square that shows us the capital city, like the one shown where Port Moresby is. Finally, height less than 300 meters. Anita?
The dark green shading.
Okay, we have the dark green shading. Those are areas which are less than 300 meters. Good. What we have just done here, we looked at one of the important feature of a good map, and that is keys and symbols or legends. And the important task is that for us to be able to read and interpret maps, we should be able to look at the symbols that are given and be able to work out what those symbols represent on maps. We are going to be dealing with topographic maps in most of the cases in geography, and that's where we are going to be also looking at things like contours, be able to calculate gradients using contours and etc. But if we know and we are able to read the symbols, then we should be able to find and identify features easily from any given map, whether it be a topography map or whether it be one like that we have on our atlases or in our atlases. Anyone with any queries or questions you'd like to ask with regards to what we have just covered so far? So if I gave you, maybe in a test, later on, a couple of maps to work with, will you be able to identify features or symbols? Sorry, not features, but symbols correctly? Will you be able to identify features on the map by looking at the symbols that are given and give the correct information? Well, if you can, well done. That is the simple skill that we have just looked at on knowing how to interpret maps using keys and symbols. That will also conclude our lesson for today. Tomorrow we are going to move on to looking at another important skill, and that is the skill on directions and as well as that bearings. So for our lesson tomorrow, I'd like you to also bring your protractors to the class so that we can use our protractors for working out bearings together with directions. Okay, class, if you can stand up now. Good afternoon, and thank you, 11G.